Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As you can see, the title of my presentation is a paraphrase of a famous Deng Xiaoping slogan, socialism with Chinese characteristics. So actually, it's not a socialism at all. I will be talking about the problems of renovation in East Asia, and I will mainly focus on Great China, meaning the area covering the People's Republic of China and Taiwan and Hong Kong. But the phenomena I will mention relate also to East Asia in a wider sense. I mean here Japan, Korea, and Indochina. The topic of my presentation focuses on an attempt to find balance between culture and nature, between lasting and changes, between function which is useful and the function which is decorative, and between past and present. Contrary to what one can expect both in Europe and in the West, as well as in Asia, the point of balance is maintained or is being searched for. The problem lies in the fact that the point of balance is identified in a different point than here in us. Searching for balance where we do it, will not find it, but it is still there. I will show you some slides related to the life cycle of a building. I took the photos this summer in Taipei. Taipei is the capital city of Taiwan, meaning the People's Republic of China in Taiwan. The city is small in the Asian scale, 2.5 million population, 4 million in the metropole, but the process started quite early, and it's interesting from the architectural point of view. It is also very representative for the area I'm talking about. On the first slide, you can see the life cycle of a building from a very end. It is a plot of ground in the center of Taipei at the main street. As you can see, it's covered with shrubs, with bush, and behind a concrete wall we can see a one-story building, which is typical of Taipei from before the Second World War. The building is 70, 80 years old, covered with roof tiles, and it actually can't be seen because it's a derelict building. I have been visiting Taipei for 5 years, and the building is still bare. No one enters it, and only wild cats live there. And here's another example of a similar building. From behind the fence, you can see roofs of the traditional architecture. We would consider it very nice and typical of China, but they are not regarded as such in China. They are considered a derelict building. Further step of the cycle is that bulldozers arrive, demolish the buildings, and something of that kind appears. I remember a building that used to be there, and now it's a yard because the plot of ground is surrounded from 3 sides with buildings. The stucco, which you can see, is made according to the architect, and it is supposed to resemble Saint-Germain-des-Prés. This design or phenomena is very typical of Taipei. These are temporary parks. They are created on plots of grounds to be developed in the future. These are plots of grounds from which buildings were demolished and temporary parks are created. Their life cycle usually lasts between several months and 2 years at a maximum. Trucks with shrubs and trees arrive, they are planted, Different devices such as playgrounds are placed, and this small park lasts for some time. They are the inhabitants are very eager to use it. This is quite a brand new park, but in front of a building where I used to live in Taipei, a similar playground or park was created an hour and a half ago. Now it looks very nice. The trees are 3 meters tall, but as far as I know, it will disappear at the end of this year, and something of that kind will appear in the space. These are pavilions created by estate developers. A new building will be built, and people will be able to buy new flats. The Chinese find it very hard to find a flat in a place that is different. So they come to this place, talk in this particular place with a representative of an estate developer. There is a small cafe, pond. You can talk, you can drink coffee, and be in the place where the building will be created. But the important thing is that the building that will be created there will not look like that at all. Here's another pavilion from an estate developer. As you can see, it's located on a much wider plot of ground. It's huge, surrounded with a two-story park. There are different presentations. You can visit a cafe or a restaurant set in an open park. I myself saw that these pavilions take different shapes. I saw one that resembles a colonial palace with columns. They are mainly built of plaster cardboard panels or plywood and are absolutely not durable at all. The whole construction takes 2 days and the demolition takes several hours. Their lifetime is several months, meaning by the time the flats will be on sale. This is a very interesting place. I remember an old building that used to be here. Then there was a temporary park, then a pavilion, and here you can see a new building under construction. Please note the way they are constructed. Taipei is an active seismic area, so the frameworks are very strong, made of reinforced concrete. In this respect, all buildings in China are very durable and solid. Everything but for the internal frame is completely different, but I will mention it later on. Now I would like to pay your attention to what is outside. This is a huatian, meaning flowery walls, or walls covered with plants. The local municipal authorities of Taipei decided that all buildings are surrounded with a fence planted with flowers or ivy, just like here in this slide. But only building sites are protected or decorated this way. This is a wall of plants surrounding a place where a huge auditorium will be built. It is several hundred meters long, and a person comes every morning and waters it. It is very interesting to see that a building emerges or rises from this plant wall. Sometimes they are planted with only one kind of tree, such as ivy here, or there can be different combinations of plants. Here you can see a new building in Taipei, very typical example of architecture. I remember a pavilion that used to be here when the flats were on sale. Please note the very complicated facade of the building, full of frames and additions, which is again typical of Taipei. I will show you what these ornaments are used for. This building is not older than 15 years, but nobody remembers what the facade looked like initially. I would like to pay attention to the bars, to the grids in the walls, but they do not constitute a part of the original project. They are added impromptu by the inhabitants as necessary, and they perform a few functions. First of all, they are supposed to develop the residential space. You can place an air conditioning device, you can dry the lining there, or put some objects that you do not need in your home any longer. The second function is that on Taiwan, typhoons happen very often, and different objects, pieces of fascia boards can be there. So the grids are supposed to protect against the impact of wind or twigs. The third function, which is often explained by the inhabitants of Taiwan. They are a society of nouveau riche. The economic development occurred within the last 30 years. So people are very much afraid of thefts. They consider the grids, the bars, as a protection against thieves. I saw such a bar on the 5th floor of a facade that was extremely smooth. So I would really admire someone who tried to climb the wall. You can simply imagine how dark a flat can be if it's so well protected against the light. In the past, it used to have a different function when there was no air conditioning. The less light, the cooler the flat was. Now they have air conditioning, but the function has preserved. There are no such open windows as we do have. They cover it with curtains, thick curtains, place grids. The glass is very strong, and whenever they enter their home, is that they put the light on because the flat is so dark. Another important meaning is that traditionally a home used to be a hidden place. Anyone passing the street would not be able to see the interior. Now the lack of will to show to the public maintains, and the windows are not used for being seen. Now I will move to the conclusions that you can draw from what I have just shown. First of all, what does it say about Chinese architecture? The life cycle is characterized by the naturality. What does it mean? It means that a building, similarly to a part of living nature, plant, animal, or human being, has the same stages of development. First, it is born, it's beautiful, young, and desired. Then it develops, gains certain functions. Then it ages, becomes derelict, and is demolished. Secondly, it means, and it is quite different to our approach, the process or the direction of the process is considered inevitable. Nobody tries to renovate buildings, but I will mention certain exceptions to the rule. Generally, it is considered that the life cycle of a building goes only to one direction. The third typical element is that the rebirth happens as a result of recreation, meaning that we demolish and build new ones. It simply means that a building, in the Chinese understanding, is the same think on the same level as a tree. That is why it's really hard to convince the Chinese to our vision. The vision that assumes renovating. Because it is as if we were trying to convince a forest person who stands in front of an old wood and telling them, let's preserve it. But the person will say, we'll cut the trees down, we'll plant new trees, and we'll have a beautiful wood. That's a very interesting observation, that their approach to renovation says that in the traditional Chinese understanding, there is no difference between the natural world and the environment created by humans. They are an integral unity. In our culture, it is not so. Another feature that we can read from the life cycle of a building is the temporary nature. I showed you the temporary parks and temporary pavilions. The temporary pavilions exist in Poland too, but their temporary nature means something degrading. You do not have to make any effort. In our culture, everything is built as if it was supposed to last thousands of years. However, in China, the effort put into creating the temporary things is huge. What does this temporary nature derive from? First of all, from the non-durability of materials. I showed you the frame construction of the building, reinforced concrete, but the other materials include plastics, ceramics, and aluminium, which in our context would not deserve being used for building structures. When I was sightseeing Taipei, I saw facades made of precious materials, noble stones, and I had a habit to knock at the facades, and everything was made of plastic. It is caused by the climate, which destroys the materials. It makes the solution cheaper, and people do not care about it. It does not make a difference for them whether it's stone, whether it looks like marble, or if it's a genuine marble. But the conviction for using non-durable materials is traditional. Traditionally, the Chinese constructions use three basic materials, which was compacted soil, wood, and burnt brick. It all resulted in the fact that the oldest architectural buildings in China come from mid-14th, mid-17th century from Ming dynasty, and the rest from Qin dynasty, 17th, 20th century. It is not because there were no durable materials, but simply nobody used them. Stone is available, but nobody used it as a building material. I will tell you more about why they have such huge tolerance for temporary things. The natural order and the order created by humans are not separated. In China, there has never been a process that occurred in the second half of the 19th century when industrialization made people think we can destroy nature, and it was a really fearful thought. That is why we consider natural materials better. That is why we use wood more than plastic. In China, they do not have such an approach at all. Plastic in China is treated as better than wood. So, for instance, in parks, the fences used to be made of bamboo, but bamboo in the climate gets damaged very fast. That is why all fences look like bamboo, have the shape of a bamboo, and are made of plastics. And everybody is fully convinced that they are better because they are more durable. Next, when it comes to the life cycle of a building, we can pay attention to the next feature, meaning changeable nature. Buildings are built as if they were not finished, not completed. We have great respect for the initial thought of an architect. We try to remove all the layers of plaster, come back what used to be in the past. It's enough to look at the interior here. But in China, the approach is different. Buildings are supposed to change and be completed step by the users. The function of changing has certain borders anyway. Greater focus is placed on functionality in China. Houses are first of all used for living and not for watching, so the focus is on functionality, not decorative function. What happens to the buildings when their life cycle expires? In Europe, we will renovate the building, and in China, they will think that this used to be a factory, will demolish it, and will make offices, and not adapt the old factory for offices. So the function limits the life cycle, the lifetime of a building. This is a summary of what I have said so far. I mentioned balance at the very beginning. How can we guarantee lasting and changes? Lasting is guaranteed by reconstruction. We reconstruct in a similar shape. Non-authenticity means that we change the matter. In Europe, we preserve the matter, and in China, we preserve the shape. That is why we consider these buildings not authentic. I can quote many examples, but one of them can be the old town in Shanghai, which is brand new. It's maximum 10 years old, and everybody is satisfied that it's so beautiful. The city walls of Xi'an city that were demolished in the 1960s upon the order of Mao have been recreated using cement and concrete, but initially they were built of compacted soil and bricks. But who would care for it nowadays? Everybody now is absolutely convinced that made of concrete are much better because they are more durable. And the final statement, new material, old idea. It is related to recreating old buildings, historic buildings. It happens so that we visit a temple in China and someone says it's very old, it's 1,000 years old, but then it turns out that it used to be demolished and reconstructed every 200 years. And nobody cares that actually now it's 150 years old. Here we've got a comparison and summary of what I have said. In Europe, the durability, the lasting is ensured by conservation. So we simply try to come back to what was at the beginning. Authenticity, I will not get deeper into it. Old material, new idea. As for the paradoxes these two approaches create is what follows. In China, we have artificial elderly age. In Europe, we have artificial youth. I don't know if someone has ever been to Aachen. There is a chapel of Charles the Great built in the 9th century, and the Germans say it's totrenoviert, meaning preserved to death, and looks as if it was built last week. To sum up my presentation, I would like to say how the approach to renovation can be changed. At the beginning, I said that buildings in China are not renovated with one exception, except the architecture from the West. So the Chinese demolished their Chinese old town in Shanghai, but preserved and reconstruct the buildings from the old French concession, looking for a parallel to what I have said before about the architecture's place in the natural order. We can use the following metaphor. The Chinese consider these buildings as if they grow from seeds from different continents, so they do not think they have the right to and the skills to recreate them from scratch if they are demolished. So the renovation applies only to buildings from Western culture. Thinking about preservation of historic buildings penetrates into China. Many Chinese architects study abroad, and the ideas we have penetrate into China, become more and more popular. That is why the attitude of the Chinese to their architectural heritage changes. A good example I could mention is Pritzker's award winner, Huang Shu, Chinese architect, who raised an interest of the competition jury with the design of reconstructing the Nibo Historic Museum. The museum was built from the ruins of houses demolished in the place where the museum was created. The architect intentionally emphasized the walls, which combines how the Chinese recycling is combined with the Western tradition. And I think that's it from me. Thank you very much.
Bardzo dziękujemy.